We were in the last lap of our discussion of the transformation of the physical. We noted a number of points. There are a few more, and they relate to the need of a certain physical discipline. We accept the importance and the necessity of mental discipline, quieting the mind, silencing it, controlling its thoughts, purifying it, keeping it open to a higher consciousness. We readily recognize also the need of purifying our emotional being, and of course the urgent necessity of disciplining the vital. But we hardly pay any attention to the necessity of self-discipline of the body. Those who pay attention to the body do it in such an exclusive way, in such an exaggerated way, that they become something like faddists, always lost in the upkeep of the body. But here, in this yoga, the self-discipline of the body has to be given a proportionate importance by way of learning to be conscious, learning to be aware of the promptings of the body, of the needs of the body, and of respecting the body. This is hardly done in our day-to-day life. Programs like the asanas or exercises are meant not only to ensure the proper functioning of the bodily faculties, but also to get time to oneself to be aware of the physical existence. Otherwise, we take it for granted, and both the mind and the vital ride over the physical. This self-discipline, you have to observe yourself. If anything goes wrong, doesn't work as it should, one has to look into oneself and find out why. There is always a temptation of swallowing a tablet and killing the symptoms. We know we don't kill the disease, but the symptoms. Now, in the Ayurvedic system, they observe what is happening and what is the root cause. It is a long-range treatment, but an effective treatment, nearer nature. The natural ingredients are not interfered with by adding chemicals. Sri Aurobindo and Mother, particularly Mother, attached great importance to the Ayurvedic discipline. She had implicit trust in certain Ayurvedic specifics. I have not known Sri Aurobindo having the same faith in Ayurveda, but he has spoken on a number of occasions on homeopathy. He says, that homeopathy is nearer the spiritual way, and he makes a very profound remark that the homeopathic way of reducing the size, the dose, almost to an infinitesimal proportion. He says it shows that it is on the border of the infinite. The infinitesimal is on the border of the infinite. So your body is being handed over to the infinite. One step more. However, homeopathy has not been developed as a science on the scale on which allopathy has been done. And there is a reason. Because allopathy goes on certain rules, experiments, but in homeopathy, Mother said that the key is an intuitive grasp. Intuition. The moment a person comes before you or a case comes, if the intuitive faculty is active, without reasoning, you come to that exactly what is the reason, what is to be done. Now, how many practitioners of homeopathy are open to intuition? Some of them, they take out the index and from the symptoms they trace which medicine to give. And I have known cases here where to test whether this medicine is effective or not, whether the diagnosis is correct or not, they would give a certain dose and that will flare up the disease. The theory is that shows that the disease responds. There is an overdose, so it is overactive. Lessen the dose and it will be cured. That is the theory. If it works, it is very good. But there have been unfortunate cases in our ashram when certain homeopaths have let the disease flare up and then have confessed that they can't control it. People have died because nobody could help. Allopathists would not step in, and homeopathy, they said, we can't control. They don't say it in so many words. They would attribute it to some lapse on your part and things. However, it is for each individual to find out which way suits a person. But it is also to be kept in mind that a continued resort to homeopathy has certain dangerous consequences. It leads to serious imbalances in the system. Continuous. It can't be made a habit of life. That is as far as medication is concerned. There was a time in the history of the ashram when Medicines were taboo. They were frowned upon. And Sri Aurobindo makes a humorous remark in his letter to Nirod, saying that there is a complaint that whenever any patient comes to you, you frown as if it is a crime to be ill. Is that so? He asks him. Now, it was considered at that time something infra-dig to be sick, to go to the doctor. And mother on her part always discouraged going to the doctor, particularly in the earlier stages. She could afford to do it because she could always look around us and know the cause by which the imbalance or the fever has come, and she could do something. There was a case of 1 or 2 children. They are now grown up. They have got children by themselves with very high fever. The doctor could not control the fever, could not diagnose. So when the father, not the father or the grandfather, complained to mother that the boy is getting very high fever, mother said, yes, I know. And when we looked at her questioningly, she said, the soul is too big. The body can't bear. So till a balance is established between the soul consciousness and the carrier, the body, there is this kind of eruption of fever. Don't do anything. Don't take the child to the doctor. Report here, he said. And that was it. Most of the children, as they were being admitted, she would know why there was fever, there was upset, and she would always find a yogic reason for these upsets, because at that time the atmosphere here was so pure, undiluted, that ordinary diseases could not break into it. So always there were symptoms, results of some yogic action. So it used to be a joke that any kind of illness was a purificatory measure. Not all were that, of course, but the body always reacts in fever when there is an imbalance. And even very late in our life, mother observes that with certain illnesses, it is better to allow them to work out without interfering. And she recalls a belief or a practice in some of the occult circles to induce an illness in order to get rid of certain impurities, whatever it is. She was one who believed in allowing a fever, a headache or whatever, such things to run through. If we have the patience, if we have the endurance, that's indeed the best. But as long as one does only yoga, this is perfectly practicable. But if we involve ourselves, if we surround ourselves with all kinds of irrelevant programs, routines, which don't have anything to do directly with yoga, yogic practice, then it is different. There is interference, there is a mixture. And what Sri Aurobindo says, medicines in many cases are used by the yogic force as an instrumentation. He once said that cheat the body with a medicine. That means the body, physical body of ours, has got into a habit, not of all, but many, most, of responding only when medicine is given. So he said, use some harmless medicine and cheat the body, and it will behave well. Partly humorous, but the fact is that, and we have known in modern medical practice how, I don't get the right name, they give certain fake tablets to the patients, and those patients are under the impression that they have been given sleeping tablets, and they go to sound sleep. It is an open secret. The tablets look exactly like that. Similarly, the body is into a habit of responding to particular treatment. All these observations, meeting the demands of the body halfway or full way, for some time or all time, these are details of a discipline which we have to practice and undergo. An environment like the ashram has been created specially for an uninterrupted practice of these disciplines at different levels of the being. Outside, there are always pressures, there are always tensions, you are always to catch up with the clock. You are not a master of yourself. Here, it is not so. Unless we weave a compulsive routine around ourselves. We have scope, we have facility to master ourselves, to rule ourselves, to determine our way of life. And the discipline of the body, without fuss, without fadism, is possible here, because especially they have, Sri Aurobindo and Mother, have established a special spiritual force to help the body, to help the physical to change. That is why you will see people living longer here. They may not do yoga, but the very fact that they have been here, they have unconsciously imbibed the vibrations and the power of longevity, which Mother has. Somebody had made statistics that in the whole of India, we have the highest ratio of people living above 70 in a collective society. It does not reflect on our individual merits, but on the wall of protection, on the strength that is at the elbow of the physical as a result of the yoga of the physical done by Mother and Sri Aurobindo. If you have read Sri Aurobindo's record of yoga, personally, I don't like to read it, because the record of yoga were his private diary notes, noting the physical changes the physical reactions and the physical results of the yoga that he was doing, going into unimaginable detail. And they were in huge books. And they were in my office for a number of years in the Almira. And I had not touched them. Once while cleaning the books, other books, I happened to open and I saw Sri Aurobindo's handwriting. They were big books. I looked into it. I said, it is a private diary. So I spoke to Nalini and asked whether they are to be read. He said, better not. I left it. For years together they were there. And it was a kind of a shock to me about 2 years ago to read those things being printed in the journal of the archives. So I asked some persons who are responsible. He said, yes, we asked Nalini, and he said, I suppose you can. That is his language. But I do think it is not fair to Sri Aurobindo. But the thought of the record of yoga came to me now to illustrate what attention, detailed attention he gave to the functioning of the body. Now, we can't do that much, we don't have that consciousness, but still we have to observe the functionings of the body, the needs of the body, and teach the body to keep itself open to the workings of the higher force. If you have observed carefully, there are moments when the whole body feels light, when the whole body throbs with a certain psychic feeling. But do we cultivate that? Do we find out why the body feels that way at certain times? What has led to it? And what should be done to continue that? That we don't. Somebody said that we don't take note of the body unless it goes out of order. It may have been told as a joke, but that is true. But when you do this yoga, particularly the yoga of the physical transformation, it is necessary. And it is not our way to impose austerity on the body. Sri Aurobindo is very clear that violence on the body is not the way, but enlightenment, persuasion. You have to coax the body, teach the body, get its consent. Somewhere Sri Aurobindo speaks, I think we mentioned it in the transformation of the Gnostics, that you have to get the consent of Prakriti. The consent of Purusha is not enough. And when you speak of Prakriti, it includes the functioning of the physical body. We have to give it adequate nourishment and adequate sleep, as we noted last time, because the body assimilates in sleep. Sri Aurobindo's observation is, whatever the kind of sleep, the body has a way of assimilating. Recuperation, peace to whatever it is open. And it is also a fact that in a healthy person, the first stretch of sleep, the body recuperates completely and recovers its energies. The other latter half of the sleep, tends to be tamasic, tends to sink into the subconscious, to sink into inertia. That is why we have to find out what's the balance, where do we touch the bar. And Mother has prescribed a discipline to have conscious sleep. We don't go into the subject now because we have dealt with it before. To be conscious in sleep. One clue to Mother's thinking on the subject is that when you wake up in between, you just don't roll on the other side. Keep awake for half a minute or a minute, recover where you are, what you are doing, what you are for, link yourself to the higher ideal, that means for us Mother or Sri Aurobindo, and then go to sleep. So this induces a habit of relinking the body consciousness again and again to our source of consciousness, waking consciousness. Similarly, she says, never get up from bed with a spurt. Even when you are awake, even when your eyes are open, just stay put. And if you are curious about your dream experience, try to remember what was the last scene. And with that, as the tail, go backwards. It takes time. Now, whether it is worth it is another matter. But it is possible, she says, to trace the events of the night by going backwards, provided you keep the body in the same place, same position, without subjecting it to sudden movements. So this discipline and training of the body is a subject by itself. It is indispensable if we have to reach the power or the force of transformation to the cells in the body. Because the cells in the body are at the core of the physical consciousness. There are millions of cells, but luckily Mother found out that they function in groups. You don't have to deal with the cells individually one by one, but they are groups. And each group has its own individuality, its own way of functioning, and if you can impose a new law, a new movement on a few cells, the whole of the group participates in it. So it is a laborious work, and I believe she was the one person in history who attempted all the 24 hours to convert the cells, physical cells, from the religion's traditional, time-honored allegiance to the law of growth, disintegration, and death. From that law to growth, adjustment, and unending progress. He said the cells have to be convinced that the time has come for them to change that law. And once they accept it, they emanate vibrations of thrill, that because they recognize that death is no longer inevitable. Now that is another subject which we should pursue next time. But as far as the physical body is concerned, there was one more point, and that is inertia resists the completion of the siddhi. Resistance to movement, resistance to change, resistance to thought, resistance to feeling, that puts a bar on the completion of the yogic movement. It stops. And the ancients got out of that predicament by saying nature can't change, no use wasting our energies on it. But Mother and Sri Aurobindo are the first person to say that nature can and does change, because what we call nature is nothing but a bundle of habits, and those habits it is possible to change. We'll come to it next time.